I'm very pleased to be able to present back from concurrence SB 206. Now, my awareness of the issue of student athletic exploitation really began back in the 70s when I heard a lecture by Professor Harry Edwards, who really expressed this as a civil rights issue. Harry Edwards was the organizer of the black athlete boycott of the 1968 Olympics. He described college sports' reliance on unpaid black labor, which generated great wealth for all involved except the athletes. Since then, this view has been reinforced again and again by some of my favorite athletes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Andre Iguodala, Draymond Green, and LeBron James. But what may be less evident is how the NCAA's rules negatively impact each and every student athlete. Those rules ridiculously prohibit a swimmer from being able to teach swimming lessons, stopped an athlete's homegrown t-shirt business, and sanctioned an athlete who tried to hold a fundraiser for the family of a teammate who had died in practice. Let's be real. College sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it benefits colleges, broadcast networks, corporate sponsors, the NCAA, many, many more. Top college coaches make $4 to $9 million a year, and in fact, in 40 out of 50 states, including our own, the college coaches are among the highest paid state employees. These same highly paid coaches have the right to get endorsement deals and make even more money on top of their salaries. Meanwhile, contrary to popular belief, most student athletes do not get scholarships. Yes, the elite student athletes that we read about, watch all the time, yes, they get a scholarship. Does it cover all of their and their families' costs? No. But most other student athletes, especially women and those in lower tier sports, they do not get scholarships. And in committee, we heard from Olympic gold medalist Erin Cafaro, a rower at Cal, about how she opted not to exercise her Olympic rights, where she would have control of her own name, image, and likeness to get sponsorships and endorsements, because by doing so, she would have had to quit rowing for Cal. And if she quit rowing for Cal, she would not be able to practice every day and not have access to the equipment and such. And she couldn't ensure that endorsement deals she got would cover the type of costs that she would incur to keep up with her sport. Stanford top-seeded volleyball player Haley Hodson expressed that for women athletes who basically have no ability to go pro because we don't support professional women athletes, that college may be the only time that she could monetize at all the skill and her athletic prowess. But the NCAA rules prevent her, as well as every college athlete, mind you, except for, I believe, tennis players can take home once a year a $10,000 purse, but let's set that aside. Every other college athlete cannot use the skill, the thing that their family and them have put so much hard work and time into to earn any income. SB 206 fixes this. SB 206 will give our student athletes who go to college in California the same right that Olympic athletes have, which is the right to their name, image, and likeness. SB 206 does not require our colleges to pay. The things you may have seen in some social media is inaccurate. Colleges do not have to pay the athletes. And in fact, some athletes may not take advantage of this. So every athlete is not guaranteed any money under SB 206, only those that choose to use their entrepreneurial skills to monetize their talent. And yes, We in California have the right to restore these rights to our student athletes because under our existing state law, this is a right that each and every one of us have. Every other student has, and every Californian has. And the only reason that our student athletes do not have that right is because they sign a waiver to the NC2A giving it up. So, by the NC2A's own bylaws, it states that student athletes must be treated comparably to all other students. If that's the case, then this is a right they should have. And the NC2A bylaws indicate that the NC2A will follow state law. Additionally, we have had many legal opinions that the NC2A cannot retaliate against California, that to do so would be a violation of antitrust. We can and should pass SB 206.
Thank you, Senator Skinner. Additional discussion and debate. Senator Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm honored to join my colleague from Berkeley as the co-author of SB 206, and as clearly stated, it's truly the civil rights issue of today. These student athletes have been treated like chattel for years. They are workers. Despite being athletes, they are workers. And I should say, despite being students, they are workers earning millions, if not billions, for universities all across this country, and they're not being able to benefit off of their name, image, or likeness. And as stated, there are now college coaches making millions of dollars being able to monetize their name, image, and likeness. And many times a university's reputation is based more so on its athletic prowess than on its academic achievement in many cases. So this helps build allure and attention and recruitment for other students who want to come to these universities that find themselves achieving great athletic championships. It was not until 2014 that the NCAA did away with the limits on food. It was not until a Connecticut basketball star, Shabazz Napier, who was playing in the NC2A's Final Four, and he stated, "Many nights I go to bed hungry." So many times, just because an athlete has a scholarship doesn't mean that all of their needs are taken care of. To survive in college today requires more than tuition and books and board. So many have even complained about the fact that when kids from the West Coast go back east, they didn't even have an overcoat to wear. So this is an opportunity. It's about fairness. As Vice Chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, as I stated, this is a civil rights issue of great importance, despite some of the folks who were in this building this week complaining about civil rights issues. This is a real one that we can all get on board and support. Playing a sport that you love should not be a sentence that requires you to relinquish this fundamental right to earning income. Our standard bearer of amateurism is our Olympic athletes, and they today are allowed to monetize their name, likeness, and image, and I think these athletes should be given the opportunity. Again, less than 3% of these athletes make up, or I should say these athletes make up 3% of the student population, but these African-American athletes make up over 50% of our football and basketball teams across the country. And it's time that we right this historic wrong. SB 206 is that first step. Please join LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and many other well-known athletes in supporting SB 206. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Bradford. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to take the opportunity. I think we had a bill on the floor the other day talking about allowing young people to vote and be engaged civically. I was so impressed when I got a text from a sophomore football player at Long Beach Poly High School, Austin Griffin, who my colleague from Alameda said the following, that he wanted to express his support because as an athlete, he knows how hard it is to play and keep your grades up. And he said it would help so many struggling in college to eat while the schools make so much money, and that he wanted me to support it. I thought it was important to re-acknowledge that young people are paying attention to what we do. They see themselves in the life experience of those athletes, and they understand that even though they're on the news, they're on TV, that they're elite athletes, that they too struggle in college. And he wanted me to support the bill, and on behalf of Austin, I'll do that, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Senator Borges.
Mr. Chair, I kind of wish this issue existed back in my college days when I used to play tennis. I mean, this would have been terribly convenient. But I really would like to pose a question, if I can, to the floor manager, just for clarification.
Well, it's actually the author, but yes.
Oh, the author, excuse me.
Are you
sorry.
willing to?
I'm willing to, yes.
Through the
My
chair.
knowledge is dated. There used to be a time when, to get into the Olympics, you had to be an amateur, and the definition of an amateur is that you did not profit from the sport itself. That's changed a little bit, but is that still the rule that you're aware of?
No, it is no longer. All Olympic athletes have the right to their name, image, and likeness
No,
and can
to
take.
get into the Olympics, to qualify.
No,
Okay.
it is no longer.
Well-
It is still a qualification, though, however, if you're in community college, which is not a Division I or II sport, so thus not under NC2A rules, and let's say you were the star player at your community college, and you monetized your YouTube videos. You were, so followed, and you would then be excluded from participating in a Division I or II college sport activity because you had done that prior. So there is, for example, a young woman in California. She's in not middle school, but right before high school. She's a brilliant soccer player. And she is so followed worldwide that her parents opted for her not to go to college as a soccer player, to begin to take endorsements now, because they knew even as an 8th grader, if she took endorsements, that she would be excluded from being able to be on a college team.
It's crazy.
I'm torn on this because, one, I think this is a contract right that is at issue here. For someone to be told that they cannot have control over their likeness in the course of their college or university experience just doesn't seem fair when everyone else does. So it's almost like a contract right. But on the flip side, I'm wondering, are we concerned at all during the course of drafting this legislation, were you concerned at all that the industries and all the related dollars that will go along to this is going to undermine the integrity of the scholastic experience, the emphasis on universities actually being scholastically oriented, because it's gone so far the other direction that I feel we've been losing that. We've been losing that scholastic experience for the sake of the dollars that come along with
All right, well, that's through the chair. Senator Skinner, you can
Thank you
answer or not
briefly.
answer.
One could always debate that, but certainly now there's no prohibition on any other student to being entrepreneurial. If we look at Mark Zuckerberg, he started Facebook as a college student. Now, he didn't fully monetize it till after he left college, but had he been able to, there would have been no prohibition. And I believe he was a computer science major, so he could have used a skill he furthered as a college student, monetized it, and have no problem. So we don't apply that standard to any other student. Additionally, if we look at the college sports industry, there's great corruption because we don't allow this. Instead, there's under-the-table payouts, either by college coaches directly to players or to others. Then the FBI investigates, and then what happens? The player themselves suffers. The player themselves is then excluded from the sport. And if we do this, if we pull this above ground and give the student the right, we will avoid that. Additionally, you have situations like Zion Williamson, who quit school, did not finish school, because there was no lucrative reason to stay in school. Perhaps some athletes would finish their college degree before they went pro if we allowed this.
Got it. All right, I'll end my comments here, Mr. President. This is a very tough issue. I'd like to see how this plays out. I will be supportive. I'd like to see how this plays out in the next 3 to 5 years if it does change the culture.
Thank you, Senator Borges. Senator Archuleta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak in support of the bill because I have someone very dear to me who played on the USC football team, my oldest son, Bobby Archuleta, and he played with Rodney Peete, and they shared lockers side by side. So I'm very proud of his accomplishment, and he wears his Rose Bowl ring very proudly as a USC Trojan. And he told me stories that way back when, how some of the kids on that football team had to ask other kids within the student body for extra dimes, nickels, a couple of dollars here and there, because they could not afford that lunch that was needed at the outside cafeteria. The fact that if their automobile broke down, they couldn't take care of it by asking someone else, because that would be in violation of the NCAA ruling. And so this is exploitation at its fullest. And I think that now that the state of California is being recognized across the nation, everyone is saying, oh my God, what is happening in California? What is California doing? We're doing the right thing, making sure that these young men and women are taken care of. And incidentally, senators, not every single athlete is going to be eligible for this because of the fact it has to do with their abilities and their status to be the superstar, because not everyone. But hopefully they'll spread the wealth to a point that kids will be able to receive not only the education, but the nourishment that they need every single day to compete. So I'm thinking that California, again, is leading the way. And let's go ahead and open those doors for these kids that need our help. Thank you. And I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Archuleta. Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I came to the floor today pretty sure of my opposition to this bill, but the debate has caused me to rethink my position. I would like to ask the author a question for clarification on one particular issue, please.
Are you willing to take a question,
Yes,
Senator
I
Skinner?
will take the question.
The NCAA, as I understand it, has written a letter to the legislature. I don't know if you would characterize it as a threat or policy position on their, or a position on their end that if this does pass, that they will not allow California schools to participate in postseason NCAA tournaments, which is really the source of my opposition to the bill. But what causes me to ask the question and kind of become more open-minded to it is Forbes did a very good article on it last week and have presented some pretty good information. But I would, since I wasn't a part of the hearings or that letter, I would like to hear from the author if possible on that, please.
Senator
Yes,
Skinner.
thank you. So this question of whether the NC2A can make good on the threats that they are making, the many lawyers, including a lawyer who wrote in a Forbes article, and we have numerous other lawyers who've now opined either in a Forbes article, in there's an online publication called The Athlete or The Athletic. There's a number of others. Different lawyers all have been following this bill and have all expressed the opinion that if the NC2A tries on their threat, that, well, first, they don't believe that they will because it is an antitrust violation. That is the legal opinion. And if we look at the history of lawsuits that have been taken against the NC2A on the theory of violation of antitrust, their record, let's say, their record of winning is pretty low. They have lost almost every lawsuit brought up against them in a question of antitrust. So the legal opinions that both we have requested and that have just voluntarily been expressing themselves within the press are all that the NC2, that this is a hollow threat, that this is to scare us. Notice that the NCAA did not say they would forbid college California colleges from participating at all.
Right.
They went at the heart of the thing. If I'm a student athlete, what do I most want? The championships, the playoffs. So of course, that is the most formidable threat, but I think it's a hollow threat.
Thank you. Back on my own time, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. Skinner. I appreciate that. A very good explanation. I will divulge to the body here that I did have a very powerful lobbyist contact me on this bill. My youngest son, who plays college volleyball, and so hopefully someday he's in the arena of being qualified for this. I don't think he is right now, but he's got a little bit of work to do. But hopefully he's listening. I appreciate Senator Archuleta's comments on this as well. That and based on those, I'm going to vote aye today, and kind of see how this let's see how this works out. I think it's time for this kind of change. I think that a lot of the points have been poignant today, and so with that, I'll be supporting SB 206.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Senator Dowley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, real quick, I just want to say, look, this is big business. These colleges are making a lot of money off of these students at their peril. So if you're on our side of the aisle and you talk about free enterprise, why not allow them to, how many of them are, it's a very small percentage, number one. Number two, some of them don't ever make it to the pros and they get hurt. And they missed out on that opportunity to maybe get some resources along the way. I think this is a freedom of enterprise. This is a no-brainer for me. Definitely support this bill and hope that they get to use it and they make some resources and grow their business. That's their business. I look at this like a business decision, and I think we all should support this bill.
Thank you, Senator Dowley. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just one last point. It hit me as I listened to the last speaker. This is also a gender parity issue. I went to high school with the Millers in Riverside, Cheryl and Reggie. And, the truth of the matter is, love you, Reggie. Cheryl was a better ball player in high school. But the WNBA didn't exist then, and the women in the WNBA don't make a dime on the dollar compared to the men in the NBA. And so if Cheryl in college at USC had been able to do this, she would have benefited from her innate, amazing, God-given talent. Her brother had a full career in the NBA, and Cheryl was not able to do this. So this is also a gender parity issue for women athletes at the collegiate level to be able to benefit financially when they don't have the same opportunities, their male counterparts, to go on into professional athletics. Another reason to vote in support of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Senator Stone, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, and ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. This is the kind of debates that we need to have on the floor of the Senate. Cordial, thoughtful, with good backgrounds, and try to reach a consensus. I really believe that our educational institutions, their primary purpose is to educate our kids. We need to have a great educated workforce in this country if we're going to compete globally. But I'm reminded of a story as I'm sitting here and hearing testimony. I voted no on this when it originally came before us. And I heard of a story about a young man that was playing football, and he got offered a pretty nice check to go right away before he graduated from college to go to a professional football team. And his mother said, no, you're going to finish your school before you go on to the pros. And he ended up getting a horrific injury that completely decimated his football career. So I'm looking at this from a different angle now. I'm thinking that maybe if we allow some of these athletes that really have strong promise to become professionals, that maybe with some of the income that they can get during their formidable years in college, that they will see the benefits of completing their education while at the same time getting the financial compensation that they need to move forward and maybe even do very well with their talents. But lastly, I have to tell you, I'm very proud of my daughter. I have one daughter, 3 sons, and My daughter came to me when she went to high school, and she was never involved in scholastic sports at all. And she goes, Dad, I'm going to try out for water polo. I said, Brittany, that's a fantastic idea. I think you should do that. It's a great sport. Well, that night she called me back, and she goes, I really don't think this is for me, Dad. I think I'm going to quit. I said, Stones don't quit. What are you talking about? She goes, well, I thought that water polo was volleyball in the water. I said, no, it's a little bit more physical than that. But you signed up for it, and you need to stay in the sport. The reason why I mention this is because she did very well in water polo in the 4 years that she was at Aliso Viejo High School. And then she applied to go to the University of California, San Diego, and she was a little disappointed that her very high GPA wasn't 4.05, and she didn't think that she was going to get in. But her coach said, hey, have you thought about playing water polo? And she goes, no. She goes, go talk to the coach. So she went to the coach, and the coach says, I want you here on Monday morning. Come in your bathing suit. Be ready to go in the water at 7:30 in the morning. My daughter shows up. He throws her the ball. The coach says, throw the ball in the net. My daughter is a southpaw, a lefty. She takes the ball, she throws it in the net. He throws her another ball, she throws it into the net. He throws her another ball, he throws it in the net again. He goes, get out. He goes, can you be here Monday morning to start? She goes, well, I haven't been admitted to the college, sir. He says, well, I'm allowed to accept one student per year, and I'm accepting you. She played all 4 years at UCSD. And let me tell you, it was a struggle. I mean, she's fortunate she had a dad that could afford to put her through school, but she had a lot of colleagues that were playing water polo that really struggled to make it through. And so the testimony that I've heard here today is changing my mind on this vote. And again, California sometimes just has to lead the way. And this is one of those situations where I think we need to blaze the trail. For those reasons, I'm going to support SB 206.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Senator Nielsen.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is kind of a rare experience for me because I've always said very seldom does debate on the floor ever change any minds, even my own. I came here today quite opposed to this legislation, and I think we had it once before us, and I did vote no. But in listening to the debate, I realized something. Now, I was a scholarship athlete, but I was never anybody going to pay me for anything at all to endorse. But what I gained from athletics to the kind of human being that I am has made such a difference in my life's success. I have in my office a couple of footballs and my college shot put and discus, and a sign in front of it that says heavy lifting. And heavy lifting then was being in shape for sports, and I even competed in track a little bit as a master later, and football, and working on the farm. That was the heavy lifting. But now the heavy lifting is all these things that we do here. And the greatest thing I learned in athletics was discipline. Well, that kind of put it in context here for me today, because I was envisioning these legions of agents, sports agents, descending in our universities. And they're not all the most ethical people. But the point that I make, the good athletes, or anyone who even competes in athletics, even junior high school, whatever, it does something positive, I believe, to the human being, the human character, and the human soul. And so if someone is so good that they have developed an economic presence and potential, then maybe it does make sense. And now, rather than being a pretty strong no vote, I too will be an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Oh, Senator Jackson.
Yes, I feel compelled to stand up as a result of the comments by my good colleague from Los Angeles, because we're seeing a history of moving in the direction of recognizing and respecting student athletes. As a young woman, believe it or not, I was actually a pretty good tennis player. But I wasn't eligible for scholarships to college because they didn't give scholarships to girls to play sports in college. That, of course, has changed dramatically. And as a result, we now have college scholarships for women in sports. We have women who are leading the United States in gold medals at the Olympics because the opportunity to compete and to be able to make a living at it, or certainly not having to go out and drive an Uber in the evening after they work out and try very hard to excel and to live up to their athletic expectations. So we're seeing movement in that direction. And I think it's critically important that we recognize that these young people who have extraordinary talent cannot do it on their own. I also have a grandson who is 6'7" and is a starting small forward, guard, depending, at a university, and went to the NC2As last year. He's a starting player. He has a 4-year scholarship to college. But that isn't enough. We end up having to send him money every now and then. Hey, what would you like for your birthday? Well, there's a little hamburger store around the corner. I could sure use some money because I really like those burgers after a 4-hour workout when I've lost 5 or 10 pounds. Not complaining, but this is the reality. This is the kind of thing we need to reinforce and support these young people who are achieving excellence, who are just trying to go through college. And I will tell you, being an athlete and a student athlete and doing well in school and doing both is not an easy task. The notion that they could then, that we actually would give them the opportunity to have some additional money so that they can actually live while they're in school is not an extraordinary reach. And for those reasons, the fact that when we saw athletes, Olympic athletes, now be able to get some money as they do their work and as they achieve those excellent goals. And now opening this up, I would submit that if the rest of the country doesn't follow suit, we're going to have some great athletic teams here, because a lot of those young folks are going to want to come to school in California. So for that and a bunch of other reasons, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator Skinner, you may close.
Thank you. In my close, the intent of this bill is not to interfere with the right of our college programs to generate money for their athletics programs. It is not in any way designed for that. It doesn't require the colleges to pay the athletes. And in fact, the reason it's coming back for concurrence is because the bill was amended in the Assembly. And the amendment that we added was that any contract, endorsement, sponsorship that a student pursued could not be in conflict with a contract that the university had for their sports program or that team. So it just wanted to be clear and lay that to rest. And then to finally say that you don't have to be an elite athlete to benefit from this. We had, I think our colleague from Healdsburg brought to us on the floor a couple months ago a young woman from Lake County who had won the championships statewide for high school in wrestling. And it was the first time any athlete from Lake County had accomplished such a feat. Now, assuming that step back. That young woman is just the pride of Lake County. You could see there were so many people here when she came to get that recognition. They're so proud of her. You know that there are car dealerships, Rotary clubs, you name it, that would love to be able to sponsor her. If she wanted to go on to wrestling at a college, an NC2A college, she would not be able to accept that. And I highly doubt, I'm sure there's a few women wrestlers that get a scholarship in college, but it's pretty rare. So it is for athletes like her and every other athlete that we should do this. And if I can close and reference my own high school and college favorite athlete, the former UCLA player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, just as with every injustice, wrongs don't get righted unless we keep raising our voices again and again. With that, I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
Allen. I. Archuleta. I. Atkins. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Borges. I. Bradford. I. Caballero. I. Chang. I. Daly. I. Dodd. I. Durazo. I. Galgiani. I. Glazer. I. Gonzalez. I. Grove. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Hueso. I. Hurtado. I. Jackson. I. Jones. I. Leva. I. McGuire. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. Morrell. I. Nilsson. I. Pan. I. Portantino. I. Roth. I. Rubio. I. Skinner. I. Stern. I. Stone. I. Umberg. Wachowski. I. Wiener. I. Wilk. Aye.
Mr. Secretary, call the absent members.
Grove. Aye. Morlock. Umberg. Umberg, aye.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Assembly amendments are concurred in.